Woo!
Here we go.
Oh, wow. Here come all the people. Look at all the people. And you're telling me that all these people pouring in right now, these people are all permies.
Yeah.
I think I heard you say that. Okay.
Cool.
Not only are they permies, but these are permies that are keen on community all over the world. Is that I think that's right. That's fair to say, isn't it?
I think it's fair, yeah. And we'd love to see some faces, people. If you want to turn on your cameras, don't be shy.
Do they have to dance when they turn their camera on? I'm not sure what the modern internet is. I get the impression there's a lot of dancing now, and I haven't been doing dancing.
There you go.
Yeah. Ooh,
All
ooh,
right.
ooh. I don't know. What did Saturday Night Live do?
Everyone's too embarrassed to turn on their video.
Yeah, everyone's like, leave me out. I'm they're they're voyeurs. Am I using that word correctly? I'm not even sure. They're voyeurs. Okay, all right. Uh, hi, I am Paul. Ooh, yeah, yeah. There used to be a thing where you could turn on there it is, chat. Okay, now I can see the words of people.
Yes, we have some chat messages.
Oh, look at
Okay.
that. Oh, see, one of them says they don't have a camera. So, and that's fair, you know. So, ooh, it says jump to the latest. Sorry, I get a little hooked. I'm looking at the chatty chat, and I shouldn't do that. So, uh, anyway, today, so Cynthia, I do you travel the world like finding these places, or are you like, hey, I'm going on vacation. You want to go with? How how does this work? What is your relationship to all? Because I there's a giant list of places you're going to, right? And
Ah,
you're inviting all these people to go there.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've been very fortunate in my life to have traveled a lot and visited many intentional communities and eco-village projects, and through all that traveling, build relationships with people who live in these different regions of the world and are much more deeply connected with the communities there. So we've partnered with them mostly to host these eco-village tours. So I get to stay home and live in the community where I do and travel occasionally, but also give away for local people to lead trips and invite others in.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And now I know that so Rebecca's here, and
Yes.
then I was a speaker at Rebecca's event. In fact, I'm going to say I was a keynote speaker. I would have pretend that's what I was. I can't remember exactly what I was, but boy, that was a great exit and build. That was a gloriously wonderful event. And I saw a guy there speak, and I believe he was from Costa Rica. And he had a beautiful community there, and it just sounded fascinating. And there's a challenge in the community world of families within community, and it sounded like that's all they did. Everybody had a family. It was like the core concept of the whole community was all families. Rebecca, do you know the fella I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Thank
Is it
you for
Costa
bringing that
Rica?
up. Oh, and thank you, by the way, Cynthia and Paul, for being speakers at that Exit and Build event. Yeah, so that was Marat, and that is a community called The Ark that he's the founder of. So I invited him up as a speaker because when I went on the Costa Rica Eco Village tour myself in 2024, and Cynthia, we were all there together, but we visited Marat and he showed us his community, The Ark. And I just was so blown away by the scale and scope of what they were building. They started, of course, with the food production and then kind of built out this beautiful master plan, but very in line with nature and the way the resources were allocated and funds were put back into various community projects, including the school, alternative schooling, so that people could have a safe haven for raising their family. So yeah, we'll be visiting Marat in April on our Costa Rica Eco Village tour, the fourth one we're doing for 2026. We have four Costa Rica tours in 2026.
So now I know that when I got to the exit and build, I was so used to like going to these events one after another that I kind of didn't even look into seeing what it was. But I gotta say, that was definitely the most I want to say, and forgive me, I'm gonna twist the English language just a pinch. It was the most me event that I had been to all that year. It was the most like me, the most aligned with my values. Um, and it was like the idea was, and I'm gonna say things which may not be true. The idea was is that if you try to go do this on your own, you will probably suck. What you need to do is find a group of people to do this with. And that, as Cynthia and I covered in a podcast we made a bit ago, that can be so challenging. And you guys were being very, that was this, the lineup of speakers is like, let's talk about these challenges. Let's talk about how this is going to be not, it's going to be tough. It's only going to be 10 times easier than anything else you're going to try to do. But yeah, it's going to be tough. And let's sort out how we're going to solve it. And so all of the speakers were about community stuff, but also how to get out of the rat race, how to disconnect from the naughty, how to disconnect from the sleaze. Is that, Rebecca? Am I getting close to what the
Yeah,
exit
like
build
getting
summit?
out of your worky job and stepping into alternative, whether that's alternative economy, alternative communities. And that's where, like, if people can go to a conference and start thinking about these things, for me, and then they go to the farm tours and they see farmers actually producing food, the next step is going to intentional communities, whatever one, all over the world. A lot of people are trying to get out of the United States. So Cynthia's designed this amazing lineup in 2026, all these international tours, a lot of expat communities, folks who kind of think outside the box, who are creating this new world, new earth paradigm, showcasing these alternative living modalities that are really living lighter on the planet and also in harmony with nature. So it's so beautiful and so inspiring. And thank you, Cynthia, also for creating Eco-Village tours and that opportunity for folks to see these communities
Yeah.
firsthand. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. And Rebecca is part of our team at Ecovillage Tours, Chief Connection Coordinator. She's really been helping people very intimately, directly on the phone, over email, figuring out which tour might be a fit for them and helping them figure out, really what community path to follow in their own lives. So thank you for your work too.
So, Cynthia, you have a very organized presentation you're about to give us that's going
Yes.
to give us all kinds of details in a very time efficient way rather than people like me just sitting here babbling and whatever. And there'll be imagery like
Oh,
slides and things.
yes.
And
Lots
so,
of photos.
oh,
Yes.
okay.
Photos of real communities.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to get into that. And hopefully at the end, we'll have time for Q&A for your questions and to have more conversation together. So yeah, I'll try to be as efficient as I can running through the slides. But first, maybe it'd be good just to hear a few voices from the people who are with us. I am curious what brings you here today. If you want to write in the chat, where you're coming from, what you're curious to learn about. If anyone does feel like they actually want to speak, it'd be great to hear your voice. Maybe you want to give a little wave if you just want to share really briefly what brings you here today. And that'll help me as well to shape the conversation.
How many different communities are we about to look at? Like, how many
Oh,
communities are on? How many different destinations are there in the upcoming tours?
well, so far in 2026, I think we have 14 trips in 14 different regions of the world, and each trip is between 1 to 2 weeks long. And each day on the trip, you visit a different community. So I don't know the math with that, but it's well over 100 communities. Yeah, yeah, Gerson. Go ahead. You'll just have to unmute.
Hey, hi everybody. Thanks so much for having me here. I been on the Permies online forums for about a year now. Been learning and reading and watching hundreds of hours of you know, sustainable living content for the last like 2 or 3 years. And we've kind of, my wife and kids and I have all, my kids are little, but my wife and I have, been trying to, um, break down barriers and have conversations about intentional community and larger family oriented, you know, um, lifestyles. And just nobody in our immediate family are even remotely interested in kind of doing this with us. And so I'm really wanting to know more about what other people are doing out there that we could be a part of or be inspired and equipped for starting something that I could invite somebody else into as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I know that feeling. Even my whole life is about intentional communities, and my family is like, we love our daughter, we support her, but what is she doing? So I get it. I'm glad you're here and you're finding your people. Great. And Simona, living as a permie in Ontario, love to travel and be inspired by the intentional communities in the world. Nice. Good. Okay. Well, let's jump into it. I'm going to put a bunch of links into the chat now, just because it's easier for me to do that. And you can go ahead and click on those links and have them open. I'm also going to put right there at the bottom, right here at the top, there's a wonderful discount code that we've developed with Permies in partnership with them. So you can save some money on your Ecovillage tour if you choose to travel with us. So that discount code is Permies200. So make sure you save that. You can even, if you just want to like copy and paste that whole message I just put in the chat, that'll be helpful. But don't look at the links right now. I want you to stay with me. I'm going to share my screen and bring up the presentation.
So Cynthia, just a real quick question
Yeah.
for what you're doing, because it seems like in the last couple of months, I have run into a dozen different people that are currently traveling the world and visiting a lot of different communities with the idea of possibly joining one. And they talk about spending a couple weeks here and a couple weeks there and stuff like that. I'm going to speculate that a person that's part of your group is going to get a far richer experience than if they attempted to do it on their own. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And that's why we created Ecovillage Tours, because it's much more efficient. You get much more diverse experience visiting many different models for community living with communities that you wouldn't necessarily be able to even access if you didn't already have a relationship there. So that's a lot of the legwork we've been doing is building those relationships and the network and all of the logistics, which is a lot. That's like mostly what we do is the logistics to pull off one of these trips. So for sure, it's great to try. I've done a lot of traveling the world myself, visiting communities on my own, and I know how overwhelming and complex that can be. So Ecovillage Tours is a very efficient way to visit communities. Yeah.
I've heard of some people that have done some drastic things to visit communities that were currently not open to visitors, and they would do. I heard some stories of bizarre stuff to accidentally force themselves in, and accidentally comes with the quote mark things, and it sounded like, oh, that just sounds like a terrible idea.
Mm.
So it's so much nicer to experience a community where you're invited, where you're welcome, instead of trying to force your way in to a property where they don't want visitors right now. And
Right.
so
Yes.
so much better. And they could possibly plan for such a group and visiting with such a group.
Absolutely. This is much easier from the community side as well. Instead of fielding all these inquiries and random visitors on random days of the week, they can really put a lot of thought and intention to hosting us as a group. So it is, yeah, it's better for the communities too, for sure. Oh, great. Okay, well, here's my presentation. I want to try to keep this within an hour, so we'll see how much time we have to get through it all. There's a lot here. I'm going to go kind of fast. Ecovillages and intentional communities. Is community living right for you? How to visit, choose, or even start a community. I want to start by sharing about my own journey briefly. I did not grow up in an intentional community, pretty far from it. I grew up in the suburbs outside of Boston, which I've already talked about my family a little bit, very supportive, but also, yeah, not at all familiar with any of the things we're talking about, permaculture, eco-villages. But I was so fortunate as a young person to be naturally curious about nature, spent a lot of time outdoors, read a lot of books about people who were living more alternative lifestyles. And at a really early age, that got me fired up to actually travel and visit some of these places myself. So spent most of my teens and 20s traveling the world. This is a photo of me at a community in Denmark, that crazy like rounded bowed roof. This is a photo here of the community where I now live. So it's been a journey. I've visited to date around 200 intentional communities, urban ones, rural ones, big, small. And I feel so grateful for those experiences. And a big part of my mission now is to share what I've learned and to help more people realize that maybe community is possible for them too. So here's a photo of my home. I joined Headwaters Eco Village about 5 years ago. I was looking to settle down after so much travel throughout my 20s and found this sweet community that's pretty close to where my parents have chosen to retire in Vermont, which I love this part of the world, even though right now I'm looking out, we have like a foot of snow on the ground at the moment. So it looks kind of more like this photo down here. We are 8 households on 15 acres of land. We share a big garden. This is actually an old photo, like our garden has tripled in size. We have a pond, a sauna, we have an earthship greenhouse, a hoop house greenhouse, chicken coop. We all pitch in and help with the garden and the chickens. So there's a lot that we share together, but we also have our own separate homes. That's one of the unique things about the community where I live is that when you join, you buy your little plot of land and then you build your house. So everyone who lives here has gone through that kind of initiatory experience of building their own home. And it's one of the things that specifically drew me to this community because it's not true of all communities that you can build your own house. A lot of intentional communities, you buy or rent a home that's already there. But I have fulfilled a lifelong dream of building my house and getting to do that within community. Here's some other photos of us playing some games in the lawn, tending the garden. This is a photo of my house way back when we were putting up the framing. That's actually me there, up on the what would become the second story. And yeah, this home has been a journey in and of itself. It's a big part of my life even today. I'm still building. Here's a photo of what it looks like more recently. This was last summer. So the design is a passive solar design with a long greenhouse along the southern wall. It's a really good, I think, combination of conventional and natural building. I did it a lot with my dad, who is more of a conventional builder. So you can imagine, a little bit of tension at times around certain decisions. I'm doing all of the walls with natural plaster. That's actually what you can see behind me. Combination of clay and lime plaster. I like to think of this house as kind of symbolic of my life and my path of bridging these two worlds and all the compromises and joy that can come through that. Here's some other photos of the house in construction. This is actually a picture of a neighboring community here in Vermont that came one day to help. One of the interesting things about getting to build a home in community, or really any big project in community, is there's so much opportunity for sharing and collaboration. Whenever, even today, like when I need a tool, I just, if I don't have it, I go and knock on a neighbor's door and see if they have it. If I need help thinking through a problem or need some emotional support, there's people around me, like in my neighborhood, who I can go to, and I feel comfortable to do so. So that's a little bit about me and my life. I spend my days mostly on Zoom talking and teaching about intentional community living, while also living in a community myself and continuing to build my home here. And now I want to shift into talking more about why community for you, because I know some of you are here kind of at the early stages of your journey. You're just beginning to think about, community living. I love permaculture. Maybe there's a way I could do this with other people. Maybe there's a community I could start, or one that already exists that I could join. So I'm very curious to hear from you. Why, really, why are you here? Why are you drawn to this idea of community living right now? And I invite you to go ahead and find the chat button and drop in a little message there about why community. Why live in an intentional community? What's that about for you? And I see we already had some nice messages from before I get to check out. Cool. All right, why community for you? We have slow typers. Thanks, Rebecca. Usually I get like a flood of messages, so come on, people, let's see what you got. All right, knowing the people you live around instead of passing each other like ghosts in the night is a big one for me. Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, there's a phrase that I recently came across that I really liked, is I think there's passing each other in the night, but then there's also this idea that even when we're in the same room together, yeah, Sherry Turkle, this idea of being alone together, when we're all like zoomed into our devices. And that was the experience I had. I had Thanksgiving with my family recently, and everyone's in the same room, but we're all sitting quietly on our devices and we're together but alone. Simona, we are better together, especially like-minded people. I'm interested in knowing how to keep people happy and collaborating all the time. Why community? Paul writes, I feel incomplete without it. I'm not a cook. Nice. Like-minded, parallel economy, hard times coming. I want to live in community because I want to do so many things. I can't do it all myself. Generally an eco person. Community is resilience. Nice. Yeah, permaculture is great and self-sustainability ideas too, but freaking hard to do on your own. Yeah. Yep, that's a big part of it for me, for sure. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm gonna put now my list up of some of the key reasons that come to my mind why community. Oh, David, yeah, I want a big family. I don't see being able to afford that. Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Yeah, keep going if you have more things to put in the chat. So at the top of my list is connection. You may know that we are in the middle of a loneliness crisis. Recent studies have shown that 50% of all American adults, half of all American adults, report feeling lonely on a regular basis, which has serious implications for our mental and physical well-being. Yeah, it's pretty dramatic, considering that we have evolved as a human being in tight-knit small social circles. That was our reality for the vast majority of our human existence. And just within the last 100 to 200 years, we have begun to mostly live alone or in small nuclear families. And so a lot of what intentional community is fostering is just getting back to basic well-being where you feel more connected with the people who live around you. And when I think about a healthy intentional community, I think about it a lot in the way that I think of ecosystem health. And you all are permies, right? So what is permaculture? Permaculture is looking around at nature, seeing patterns, and then applying those patterns to things that we create as humans. And so when I think of an intentional community that's really thriving and healthy, it has a high level of connection, frequent, high quality connection among the people who live there. So it's something that I really pay attention to when I visit communities is, okay, is there good quality connection? Is it happening frequently? All right. Shared resources, I think people mention this. I'll give a quick example. I mentioned the chicken coop that we have in our community. Every single Thursday is my day to take care of the chickens and water the garden in the summer. And I only have to do that one day a week, and my neighbors cover it the other days. And I get to eat all these amazing eggs and vegetables. If I need to travel, it's easy to get somebody to cover for me on those days. So much more can be shared, and there's a million examples here of tools and lawnmowers. Some communities even share washing machines, and that all enables us to live more lightly on the planet and have stronger resiliency in the face of whatever else is coming our way in the form of natural disasters. Community support, collaboration. I love this idea that intentional communities are centers for experimentation, for us to try out new systems, like social systems, but also ecosystems. It's a ripe field for that kind of experimentation that the world really needs right now. And of course, fun. This is a photo of me a few years ago at some games we had in our community with the kids. I think I was on like first base and everyone's, sliding in and all the girls are all around me, like hanging out and chatting. And then oh man, it was a lot of fun. And I think that's one of the big reasons for me is that community living, yes, it's challenging, it's hard, but the flip side is it's worth it, especially for those days that you feel really joyfully connected with your neighbors. All right, so that's a little bit about why community. Let's talk more about what is an intentional community specifically. I've used that word a lot. Let's get a definition in here. This is a definition from the Foundation for Intentional Community. If you have not yet been to ic.org, the letter IC, maybe you want to write that one down. They have a plethora of resources, a really rich directory of communities that you can search, like a map where you can see where they all are. And the definition that comes from FIC is that an intentional community is a group of people choosing to live together or regularly share facilities on the basis of explicit common values. So when an intentional community forms, the initial founders get together and they figure out what is their shared vision, shared mission, a set of values that's going to define the community. And then future members, when they join, buy into that set of values. And usually intentional communities have that kind of information really explicit on their websites and their literature. So you can spend a little time yourself thinking, well, what are my values? And how would I want to see those reflected in the community where I live? And then when you're doing your research, you can kind of check your values against the values of the community that you're considering joining. Yeah, Simone writes, what are our common values usually? Can you share a few that works? Another, oh, well, they all can work. It's really up to the community. So I don't want to make you think that there's some values that are better than others. Obviously, collaboration, cooperation, those are really big ones. Most intentional communities have some sort of sustainability or regeneration value, something about the environment. I would say those are the two big ones that I've seen. But then there's all kinds of other things. You know, you can have a community that's really focused on the arts or activism or spirituality. I'm going to show in a moment some examples of different communities so that'll give you an idea. These are some of the common words that you might hear for an intentional community. I like to think of it as an umbrella term or a basket that holds all of these different types. And to a certain degree, these terms are semantics. Sometimes these terms do tell you about the legal structure or the values of a community. So we're gonna get into some of the more popular ones here in a moment. If you're thinking, ooh, there's a lot of different types of community out there, which one is a fit for me? 'Cause that is one of the steps you'll want to go through on your journey. I put together a fun quiz on my website, communityfinders.com/quiz. And it's like, it takes 2 minutes and it'll just give you a sense if you're more of an Ecovillage person or a co-housing or something else. So it's a fun way to get started if you want to try that out. But stay with me. Maybe just make a note of that link to do later. All right, so some examples. This is a photo, an aerial photo of a community called Cherry Hill Co-housing. They were one of the first co-housing communities in the United States. And so I like to start with co-housing because it's one of the most well-defined types of intentional communities. It's a model that originated in Denmark, and some architects studied it and brought it here to the United States. And there's now the Co-housing Association of the US. Probably around 200 of these communities in existence, 200 more underway. And co-housing fundamentally is based on home ownership, where residents have their own private dwellings but access to shared spaces. You can see in this community, parking is off to the side, so that allows like nice space for kids to run around and not have to worry about cars. There's a big common house over here that includes a shared kitchen, co-working space, play area for the kids. And most of the homes are ecologically designed with solar panels, mostly duplexes to save on efficiency. And because it is based on home ownership, co-housing tends to be homes that are at market rate, sometimes even above market rate, because you're getting so much more than just a house when you live there. And rarely do co-housing communities have rental opportunities. So I do tell people, if you're thinking you want to find a community that's as affordable as possible, maybe stay clear of co-housing, or at least know that going into conversation with them and seeing if there's opportunities for some type of either nonprofit subsidy or government subsidy, or some way that you can get some help to live in a co-housing community. All right, now we're going to go to everyone's favorite, I'm sure, on this call, which is Ecovillage. So we're looking here at a photo of Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage in Missouri. It's one of the best studied eco-villages in terms of looking at their environmental footprint and comparing that to the average American. They have like just a fraction of the footprint of an average American. They have a car sharing program, food sharing programs. Because this community is so remote, like when I went out to visit Dancing Rabbit, I took a teeny tiny little plane. It was so small, I actually got to sit next to the pilot to get out here to Rutledge, Missouri to visit Dancing Rabbit. And all of the homes here are crazy, like super crazy natural building, cob, straw bale. There's no building codes or regulations they have to worry about, so they're really free to experiment in that way. And this is a great example of a eco village where they are striving to not only be a community, but be a model for how the rest of the world might live in a more regenerative and resilient way. So fully off grid, supplying their own power, growing a lot of their own food. Yeah, and they offer really good visitor programs as well. If you're thinking you might want to go to Dancing Rabbit to check it out for a few days or a week or two. And there's many more. So if you're looking for Ecovillage specifically, I encourage you to check out the website of the Global Ecovillage Network, ecovillage.org. They have a great map and directory as well. And even, folks, I've had a lot of success lately just like Googling like eco-villages near me or eco-villages in my state or my city, and you'll be surprised what you find. Here's an example of an eco-village that is also a co-housing community, so they've melded these two models. Ecovillage at Ithaca in New York State is the largest eco-village in the United States. They have around 600 residents. This is just one of their neighborhoods. They have 3 neighborhoods. And again, if they're using that co-housing model, it is based on home ownership, although they do have quite a few rental opportunities too. All right, so Llama Foundation in New Mexico. Here's an example of a spiritual community that is also a retreat center, which is very common. And this is an example of a community where they are living together with the intention to really explore what it means to be in interpersonal relationship and exploring the personal spiritual path, but also doing that as a group. Llama Foundation has a great saying that where they live, they welcome teachers all around the world to teach all these different pathways, but in reality, community is the greatest teacher. And for those of you who are interested in spirituality, if you're interested in living in a community that is welcoming in people to have a deeper, more conscious, more meaningful experience of life, you might want to check out a community like Llama or another more spiritual focused intentional community. All right, some more examples. Elderberry Village, I love the name of this one. Elderberry is a community for older folks in the later years of their life who would like to age in place and age in community, and not the typical Florida retirement community, but a place where they are co-owners. They help to care for and manage the place where they live, make decisions together. It's one of the beautiful examples of more senior-oriented intentional communities. Most intentional communities are multi-generational, and that's awesome, for the village vibe. Some seniors, though, feel that because it is multi-generational, there are not the design features that they might want for aging in place in terms of accessibility and support. And they find, after doing some research and visiting communities, that joining a senior community is what they want to do. All right. Oh, great questions in the chat. Oh, nice. Gardening Gardeners program. Yeah, Paul, good. Folks, pay attention to the chat too, because there's a lot of links being dropped in there and some good questions as well that I think I'll get to them in the chat at the end here. Although David asks, how does ownership work in most eco-villages? It varies pretty significantly. I would say that most eco-villages, yeah, it varies a lot. My community where I live, we consider ourselves an eco-village, and we are technically structured as a homeowners association, but we look nothing like the typical HOA, as you can imagine. We have, our own separate pieces of land, but then we have agreements about how we share certain aspects of that. We also own our common land as a collective. A lot of eco-villages are utilizing the community land trust model, where it's actually a nonprofit that owns the land. And then residents join in and become part of the nonprofit and lease their home, usually a long-term 99-year plus lease, which is really great for affordability and access. You can have eco-villages that are structured more as a cooperative, like a housing cooperative. Maybe you're familiar with a food co-op. Well, it's the same idea, having a housing co-op where residents who live there are equal owners, and it's more of like a rental kind of model, but there's no landlord. It's just also a really good, affordable model. So yeah, it can look a variety of different ways, but those are some of the big ones. All right. Riverbed Ranch in Utah. This is an example of a community that is trying to be completely off-grid. When you join, you get 2 acres of land, so everyone has the same amount of land. They're very focused on homesteading. This is a homesteading community developing what is pretty much raw land in Utah. You can have communities like Junction Village Gulf. So this is a completely different model. They're working within an existing town and trying to retrofit what exists. So buying up villages slowly within this neighborhood, putting gates through the fences in the backyards, hosting potlucks, turning different units into maker spaces or co-working spaces or rental units. I know we had someone here who said she's from Ontario, so this might be one that you'd want to check out. They're in Ontario. Torre Superiore, this is another kind of retrofit community, but doing it in the most amazing way in Italy. This is a 13th century stone village that was abandoned, as many stone villages have been throughout Southern Europe, especially. And eco-villagers moved in and re-inhabited this ancient village. And it's one of the ones we visit on our Italy Eco-Village tour as well. Truly amazing to see all the arches and passageways and tunnels and surrounded by vineyards and olive groves. You can have communities like Alegria, which, we mentioned Costa Rica earlier. This is another very family-friendly eco-village that's being created there. This one was founded by Stephen Brooks, who's kind of a legend in the communities movement, especially in Costa Rica. And there is so much. There's like 30 or more communities in development there. That's why we're running 4 trips in Costa Rica in 2026. And I also want to I threw in this community at the end because I think it's good for us to talk about briefly based on some of the questions you all put into your registration forms. So Acorn Community in Virginia is an example of a proper commune. They are an income sharing community where residents have a business together, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, which is a really thriving business actually. And they all work in the business. They don't get like an income, it's a stipend to live on, and they share everything. So this model of community is quite rare. It's a very small percentage, maybe only a dozen communities or so in the United States that are income sharing. But for those of you who are looking for affordability, you can join a community like this at no cost. You just have to be willing to work within the businesses. And I think this is good to highlight as well, because I know there's a lot of stereotypes out there about, ooh, intentional community, hippie commune off in the woods, and what if I have to share everything, and I'm, maybe more of a private person. So you've seen now in what I've shown you the huge diversity, co-housing communities that feel more like an old-fashioned neighborhood, all the way to more radical forms of community living, like Acorn in Virginia. Yeah, Amelia and asks, any lists of income sharing communities? Yeah, there's the Federation of Egalitarian Communities, the FEC, not the FIC, although they got started around a similar time, so that's why they kind of sound similar. but the FEC has a directory of income sharing communities. Cool. All right, so let's keep going. So, as you might be picking up on, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of existing communities out there that you can join. Especially when we look beyond the United States, it's a very strong movement. It's been around for a while, many different waves. We are currently in the middle of a growing wave of new communities as so many people feel discontent with life as usual and want to do something different and want to co-create with people in community. So, is your next home one of them? I think what I want to highlight here is that it is totally possible for you to live in community. I work with people from all different backgrounds, people who have a lot of money, people who don't, people who are introverted, extroverted, older, younger. If you really want to go down this path, it is totally possible for you. And there's a few different ways that you can get there. The first and the easiest is to join an existing community. A lot of communities, especially newer ones, are looking for members. You can start your own community. That's a big undertaking. It's not guaranteed to be successful. The failure rate of new communities is similar to that of starting a new business. There might be a middle pathway in that you can find a group that is just getting started and maybe like piggyback on their efforts at an early stage. And that's kind of an interesting one to consider if you have some founder energy but don't want to like start from scratch on your own. You might be surprised that in most cities and towns, if there's not already an existing community, there's probably a group that's been working on getting one going. So worth checking out. Alrighty, so a few steps if you want to live in community. Step one, clarify your why for community, which is what we kind of did at the top of this. We thought about our why, like what for me. So I encourage you, whatever you typed into the chat, maybe write that down in your notebook and spend a little bit of time thinking more deeply about why community for you. That's really going to be your North Star throughout this whole process. It's also going to be one of the first questions that an intentional community asks you when you go to visit. So think through that one. Step two, and this is the link that I put in the chat, crafting your community wish list. So if you open that link that I shared earlier, the community wish list, that's going to bring you to a worksheet, which is a free gift for you. And this worksheet has been used by hundreds of people. It's helped them clarify more specifically what they're looking for in community. I have some specific questions in there for you to answer. And then at the end, you actually create your wish list of what it is you're seeking. And once you have that, once you know your why, you know your wish list, the next step is to really get out there and visit communities and visit a mix of places, because you're going to learn something each and every time you visit. This is where a lot of people stop. Like a lot of people like you, they come to these online events, they're excited, they're inspired, but then they never take that next step of actually going and visiting places. And whether you're thinking of joining or starting, that's going to be your next step, because that's going to give you real on the ground exposure, feet on the ground, shaking the hands, feeling what it's like on a day-to-day of being in community, and hopefully giving you exposure to things that you like and you don't like so that you can further clarify your vision. And maybe if you go on to start a community, have a network of founders too that you can rely on and who can support you in that big undertaking. So this is where I introduce Ecovillage Tours, because I know how hard it is to take that next step and go and visit communities. Like I said at the top, I've done a lot of that in my life, and I think what we've created has made it a lot easier. Our participants consistently say that coming on a trip with us enabled them to have the clarity and the confidence to take that next step on their community journey. So I'm going to share a little bit more now about what it is we've created. So ecovillegetours.com is the website. I feel very proud that just within the last few years, we have hosted 14 trips to 8 countries worldwide, bringing more than 100 participants, to more than 100 communities that we have partnered with for our trips. Most of our trips are between 1 to 2 weeks in duration, and we visit a different community each day of the trip. So it's no other experience is going to give you that possibility of visiting a different community each day and really seeing this montage of all the different ways that community living can happen within a very efficient amount of time. These are some photos of our tour participants from different trips. We have Hawaii here, Costa Rica, India. This is our photo of our Vermont trip, which we do every summer. So you can come and check out the community where I live here in Vermont. Always fantastic groups. We have people in their 80s who come. We have families with small kids who come, folks just out of university, folks who are researching communities, a lot of people who are just curious and want to get more exposure and aren't even quite sure this is what they want to do, but want to come on a trip to see what's possible. So our trips are designed just for that, for people who are curious about communities, who maybe, you were already planning a trip next year to some wonderful place. Well, why not, instead of like paying a resort or, doing the typical tourist thing, come on a values aligned trip where you can experience communities, take some next steps, help maybe ease any overwhelm you're feeling, and get more clarity on what you want to do with all of this. We really design our trips to also foster connection among the participants so that you can feel like you have more of like a tribe, like a family, like a group of people who you're all kind of interested in the same things and can support each other long after the trip finishes. It's also a great way to meet community founders, to do that kind of networking, as well as get advice from the guides who we work with, who are local experts in their particular region. These are some of our upcoming trips. We have a trip to Hawaii right at the start of the new year. We have these 4 trips to Costa Rica, like we mentioned. Bali as well. We're very excited. That's a new one for us. India, we're going to Oroville, which is the world's largest intentional community. Around 3,000 residents living in the community of Oroville in India. So that's a 15-day immersive experience in Oroville, which is like, oh, amazing, amazing. Yeah, and the Costa Rica trips really are to different regions. So each trip visits a different set of communities. And we have those trips running from 9-day to 11 days. And I know somebody had asked in the chat earlier, like, why is Costa Rica so popular? So maybe I'll speak to that now. Costa Rica is experiencing a moment in its history of really being a hotspot for regenerative initiatives and community initiatives of all sorts, mostly driven by expats, not only expats from the US, but expats from really around the world who are coming to Costa Rica because of a few things. One, tremendous biodiversity. Most of the country is heavily forested, and the government is committed to keeping it quite green. That's a big draw. Costa Rica abolished their military in the 1950s. So they've had decades and decades of investment, not into the military industrial complex, but into social services and fostering a more healthy quality of life. You might know there's the Blue Zone in the Guanacaste region of Costa Rica, which is where we visit on our April trip. So just a lot of different pieces going for it, and really strong connections with the locals, the Ticos, the native Costa Ricans, many of whom we have guide our trips, who, are excited many times to work with eco-villages and see them as a pathway towards development that doesn't look like the extractive capitalistic model. So we're really proud to work with these eco-villages in Costa Rica who see themselves as part of the solution to help to prevent gentrification and some of the negative effects that obviously happen in a globalized world like we live in these days. So yeah, very excited about Costa Rica. I could talk a lot longer about it, but I'm going to keep going. So we would love for you to join an Ecovillage adventure. All that's needed to reserve your spot is a $500 deposit. We have all kinds of payment plan options. We also have scholarships. We're very committed to making our trips as accessible as possible. And I know we're in this like end of the year giving donation phase too. So if you want to support somebody in coming on a trip, that would be amazing as well. When you register, you not only get the trip, but you also get support before and after, including a pre-trip orientation call and all the help that you need to really safely travel internationally, which I know can be maybe sometimes a little nerve-wracking for folks. So we really try to support you the best we can. And yeah, I encourage you to go to ecovillagetours.com to place your deposit. As I mentioned earlier, we are very proud to partner with Permies and have this great discount you can take advantage of, Permies 200, to save $200 off your next trip. So maybe you want to like write that down somewhere so you don't forget it. Maybe, even if you think of coming on a trip later in 2026, we have a lot of other trips I didn't even mention today that you may want to consider. So be sure to save that discount code. And yeah, Rebecca, now's the chance where you get to share about what you're offering.
Awesome. Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you, Paul and Permies team. I went on the Permies thread that you all made about Ecovillage Tours and shared my discovery booking call link, and also just shared a little bit about my experience when I joined the Ecovillage Tour in Costa Rica. Obviously, there's tours all over the world, and it's a big decision to decide to travel and commit the time. Like, we totally get it. But if you have any questions about which one might be the best fit based on your goals, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help. You can call our main line at 734-245-8745. Or if you want to schedule a discovery call ahead of time, I can help you kind of walk through all the logistics and also like which tour might be a best fit depending on where you'd want to possibly move to or what you're wanting to learn about. And so we hope that you'll join us for an Ecovillage tour. I can speak from firsthand experience as well as an alumni. When I went on the Costa Rica trip, it really helped open a lot of doors for me. And I think a lot of the growth on the homestead in Texas was because of the trip, because I was able to be like, we got to kick it into high gear. Let's get a pond. Let's do our food forest. Let's get more people to move onto the land. So it's educational, inspiring, whether you want to move to a community or if you're already living in a community and you want to enhance and improve upon what you've already built and your food production goals and stuff. Is just really inspiring and educational to go see these other communities that are pretty established, some of them still forming, lots of different phases. So if you're interested but kind of on the fence, feel free to book a call with me and I'm happy to help you through the process.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Very good. Okay, well, we're getting close now to the Q&A. Oh, here's a few more links. And my email address if you want to reach out. The blog, I really encourage you to check out the blog that we have. I have an ongoing group program where we support each other in our community journeys. So lots of ways for you to plug into the movement. Oh yeah, and last slide here. I'm very pleased. I'm about to publish a book. As soon as this is done, I'm going to go back to writing that book because it's like near the end, and that'll be coming out just before the holidays. So yeah, I think I put the link there in the chat as well if you want to check out the book. That's now available for pre-order. All right, so thank you all so much. Thank you for listening. Yeah, great. I know we had a lot of questions already in the chat and some comments. Ah, Susan, very informative. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Awesome. All right.
There'd be
Paul said, yeah,
uh,
he wanted to share about his community too. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut
oh,
you
right.
both straight.
Before the recording started, you guys were saying like, okay, Paul, make sure that you talk about your community. And I totally forgot to do that. And so, but I think that the big thing I want to push now is, I mean, when it comes to coming into community, um, and if you want to hear how crazy my philosophies about community are, listen to the podcast on Cynthia's podcasts. um, I think I was like podcast number 7 or something, and I was kind of like, "Are you sure? I don't think you want me. You probably want to get like more of a normal person." And but we recently changed our entrance because that's always the thing for every community. What does it take to come in? And whether you're going to buy an acre or rent an acre here, you're kind of wise. I mean, you're not allowed to settle in until you've spent 6 months in our Gardening Gardeners program. And I think that that's for us, that's become really important because we've had some people show up and what they seem to understand what we're doing. They say that they do, and but I kind of get the impression that they don't. And our values are probably more strict than most communities. And I mean, like my guess is that there's nobody on this call that would want to come and be part of my community because we don't allow tobacco or drugs of any kind. And just on that point alone, that's probably like, I'm out. Everyone is out. But we feel there's been a lot of, we've seen some people show up and they talk about building, but they kind of end up not. And I think rather than pointing at them and snickering, I kind of would prefer to build them up to being all that they want to be. And I feel like the boot camp does a great job of that. It develops the habits of gardening and natural building every day. And then by the time that they've spent 6 months in our program, and then they go on to their own acre that they have here, then they can be far more productive. The other thing is that we've also announced that anybody who spends 4 years in a leadership program here gets to have, well, we just say Allerton Abbey, and most people who are here or know about us know what that means. But basically, it's a humble home with a giant garden. It's also, for those of you that are familiar with our truly passive greenhouse, it's also got that. And so it's a 400 square foot wafati, and I don't know. I think it's a very beautiful structure, and of course it's got a rocket cooktop inside, which generally the design is you shouldn't have to heat this building at all. It's using annualized thermal inertia, but the big thing is that we're going to gift that to a person that spends 4 years in a leadership role in our boot camp, and which is our Gardening Gardeners program. The Gardening Gardeners program is completely free, although there is an application fee to get in. So I don't know. I kind of feel like while it doesn't exactly talk about our community in a lot of different ways, it kind of does. Um, we love a community built with industrious people, and we feel like our program here has a lot of people who start off and they think that they're industrious, only when they're confronted with nature and a blank slate, they kind of put it off and put it off and put it off indefinitely. And then after a few months of having accomplished little to nothing, they're ashamed of themselves and they tend to leave. And it's kind of like whereas when they come here and they join our Gardening Gardeners program, the boot camp, then I kind of feel like we've had a lot of people show up who have never held a hammer, never held a drill, never held a shovel. And within a few weeks, they're quite productive. And then by the time they hit that 6 month mark, they are profoundly productive. And I feel like they feel strong, and they're I don't know, I like who they have become. I think they like who they have become.
Mm.
We had one gal a long time ago in Portugal. She sent her son over, who was freshly 18, and and he was here for, I believe, a month and a half, and she was very happy. She said, I sent you a boy and you sent me back a man." Um, I think that is like one of the best compliments. Um, but yeah, apparently he was kind of stuck playing video games all day every day. And when he got back, he wanted to do all the projects at home with his mom instead of playing video games. Anyway, sorry. This is your thing today is about a whole different thing, and I can go on about this a little too long. So I'm going to stop now. Surely there's some questions by now.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to hear questions. And I think it's so cool. Thank you, Paul, for sharing about your membership process, because it's kind of that trial period, which most communities have, and some are quite simple and short relatively. Like I just came on a tour and I did a work party and came to a few meetings, and yours is like, no, really spending the time and making sure it's a good fit, which is helpful in the long run because who you end up with will have a high degree of alignment.
Rather than, and in fact, now we're transitioning away from make sure they're a good fit to make sure they're a good fit.
Hmm.
And so in one way, because a lot of communities, they're trying to learn if this person's a good fit. And we're kind of like, nah, that doesn't really work. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to build the good habits into them so that they will be a good fit. And that's, we like this so much better. But again, like I think most of the intentional community would wag their finger at me and call me naughty. So, but it's different. And some people are cool with that. And some people want to be industrious, and and they kind of have come to the conclusion that they're not. And I hope that we will guide them into that.
Mm.
And so that's what whereas we've seen too many people come to our community where they're like renting an acre, and boy, I think it's kind of a soul poison to learn something about yourself like that. And it's
Mm.
sad to see. And they're adults, and they kind of are like they don't want anybody to know that they're not industrious. And so
Mm.
rather than that path, what we want to do is to build them into the industrious person that will be who they want to be, and who they'll be proud of themselves.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, very cool. Great. Okay, well, we have just a few more minutes. So, is anyone sitting on a burning question? Anything on your mind at this point?
I think
Anything?
traveling and visiting other communities is a powerful growth experience. I mean, it is profound what you will learn visiting other communities. There's so much to learn. And now um, I know that I in 2005, that was my whole summer, was visiting other communities, and it's a lot of work to set that up. And so yeah, I wish I would have instead gone with Cynthia. However, I think I went about it, well, like so much of my life, in a very naughty way. And
I like
that
that
is
word.
and that is, I did a lot of exit interviews. I would visit with the people that were leaving communities. I see David nodding his head. And so I was a very naughty boy, which Cynthia, you're probably going to not arrange for that. But I felt like that's where I really learned a lot about communities and about like what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, very neat.
And
Good.
so I'm seeing we all need to do some research, and it's like, yeah, but how do you go about it? I mean, I think every community you visit is gonna tell you how great they are because they'd like to have lovely, lovely people come. And when you're there, you're on your best behavior. So you seem lovely now.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think one of the warning signs actually is when a community says that everything is great here and we have no conflict and we've never had conflict. That's one of the questions I really advise people to ask is to ask about conflict. And it's almost like if they say they don't have it, then that's kind of a warning sign. And it's actually good if they say, yeah, we have conflict here and let me tell you about it. Um, and pay attention when they tell you about it. Listen to what did they learn? How did they get through it? How are they different now because of the conflict?
I think another great metric is
Mhm.
exactly what you're saying. They should say, oh, yes, we have conflict. That's the only answer. We have conflict. Yes, yes. Oh, like, what's the worst thing? And it's like, and then they turn to each other and like, it was the couch, right? At time, remember we had that argument for a week about the color of the couch. Remember that? Oh, man, I hope we never have a week like that again versus another community where people died. Like there was a stabbing, there was gunshots, you know. So it's like it kind of helps to give you an idea. There's always conflict, but maybe you want the community with the argument about the color of the couch. Ooh, that sounds like yeah, that's conflict. The kind of conflict I'm willing to get in on. And the other one is like I want to I'm going to not go there. I'm going to, those guys live a more exciting life that's probably better for television than for me. I want to watch the television, not be in the show,
Yes.
especially as they draw a line around my body.
Yeah,
All
that's
right, you guys, you got to give us some questions here. You got some questions. There's a lot of things to talk about in going on trips to community stuff.
yeah. Maybe we wrap up with a question that David put in the chat. I kind of answered briefly, but the question is, how do communities get started? Is it usually single property owner inviting people in, or do some of them start through groups settling together? And I would say those are the two primary ways that a community gets started, and both have pros and cons. Paul can share his opinion afterwards, but I think the pros of having a founder who already has the land and can just invite people in. It's in many ways the community can get started a lot faster. Things can get done right away. That founder, of course, has a lot of control in how things are shaped. The pros, let's say, of the group is that it's a community already. There's the culture, there's the cohesion. They can do a property search together to make sure that the land they find is what everyone wants, but that can take a lot longer and has a much higher risk. So, yeah, pros and cons, I would say.
And has more drama.
Perhaps more opportunities for growth. Yeah.
Oh,
Whereas,
Cynthia's too kind. I would have to say that when exploring intentional community, I think everybody on this call, the number one thing that you cringe about when thinking about intentional community is the drama. The upsides listed by Cynthia earlier are, of course, beautiful and wonderful, and it's what we all crave and need and desire. And I love the part about the loneliness. It's kind of like it is amazing how that gets completely washed away. However, the underbelly of all community is the drama. And that's why I think so many people now here in America, it's even more challenging. We're all taught to be fiercely independent. And that angle, that aspiration, that value uh, is destructive to community, and the core of drama in a community situation. And it's like you have to find ways to mitigate that. And I kind of feel like for the 12 years we've been here, that's been everything. How do you turn the drama from an 11 down to under 1? And I have to say that it's a challenge for every community, is to how to mitigate the drama. And I promise you, it's in all of them. And I think Cynthia is just, even though she's nodding with me, I think she will be mute on the topic because she's a kind person. I'll
Well,
be the bad guy.
yeah, yeah. No, and it's good that you're bringing it up. I like to think of what to learn from the drama, like what are the takeaways so that we don't keep repeating the same mistakes. And, in our community, we've had huge drama, huge drama, but it like comes in waves. And we have times like right now, things are pretty chill and peaceful and things are nice. But, if you had talked to me a few months ago, I might have had a different story. So it's always changing and evolving, and we're learning and we're growing and we're going apart, coming back together, and that's part of it. Community isn't one thing, it's many things that are always changing.
I would have to say that a big one that is difficult, and that we've been working on a long time, and I think we're getting pretty good at it, is that, and I always phrase it as, resentment is a slippery fish.
Hmm.
And resentments are complete poison on community. And I think that any kind of resentment is generally going to be the core of most drama. And so it's kind of like, all right, how how do you eliminate resentments? How do you mitigate resentments? How do you have less and less and less and less? Uh, I think a good example is if somebody is um, lying about something, then the people being lied to feel resentful that they've been lied to. They feel like part of it is they're being called stupid, and that's not cool. Um, but the funny thing is, and this is an important part about resentments. I think that this is so critical, and most people cannot wrap their heads around this. And it goes like this: the person that is telling the lie is resentful that the people that they're lying to aren't trusting them to believe it. And so the person that's lying, the person that is the fountain of whatever resentment package that's on the table, has the greatest resentments of all. And it's like, you would think that the victim has license for resentments, and I think that that's true, but the perpetrator is the one packing the most resentments without license. And it's like, and if you've got to you've got to remove the opportunity for there to be the lie or whatever else might happen. Resentments come in so many flavors, and it's like an infinite well. And that's like, okay, so you got to find ways to, so like, for example, here, firewood, we used to say everybody has to use their own firewood, and people would borrow from other people. And then eventually their repayment package got to be too big, and the hostility broke out from the person who was doing the borrowing. And so now what we do is the boot camp, our gardening gardeners program, supplies enough firewood for everybody to have for free. Now there's no way for there to be any resentments. We'll supply infinite dried firewood ready to go for whoever wants it, whenever they want it. We don't allow people to go and put 2 cords of wood in a big pile and set it on fire. That's not respectful of the system. But we do have, whatever you want to do with it, unlimited free firewood.
Nice.
And so now there's no more resentments in that space. And we come up with a lot of programs. We're now growing so much food. No one will ever be hungry. No one will ever try to borrow somebody else's food.
Yeah.
We have mountains of it available all year for everybody.
we do the same strategy in our garden. People are like, well, how do you share the produce? I'm like, we grow more than enough, so it's never even an issue. There's always abundance. So abundance, if you can figure out abundance, that can really help solve a lot of issues. Oh, great. Okay, wow. Well, this has been awesome. We've covered a lot. I know everyone, I've seen people writing down notes, and I hope that you got some valuable nuggets and some good information from today's call. I'm going to drop into the chat again the links that I put in earlier if you want to save those, because it'll all go away when we close. But we will send out this recording, so you'll have that afterwards. And yeah, once again, thank you so much, Paul and the Permies team. And thank you, everyone, for participating today.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. All
Bye.
right, take care.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you, David.
See you later.
Be well.